Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. I said I'd do an update if there was enough to update, and also to try and get in a few of the Q&A questions at the end that I wasn't able to get in the previous video. And do you know what? There's enough stuff to do an update, which I was quite happy about because, it allows me to do a few more little bits and pieces that can get in there ahead of the game this weekend as well. Ooh, just in case you haven't seen it, Northumberland Park Station closed. I kind of found that out myself when I was trying to book my train to head off on a Saturday. Extra trains going to White Hart Lane, if that's any help to anyone. It's one of those things I haven't put in my notes to talk about and I knew I'd forget to talk about. So just in case anyone needs to know that. Talking of that match, some good news. Destiny Udogie back in full training. We kind of expected that. I think I maybe said that in the last video, that Postecoglou expected him to be back, needed this little two-week break to be back in action, and that's one of the fullbacks back. That's what we want. Obviously the first choice fullbacks are the better suited to the Postecoglou way. So Destiny Udogie coming back is a major part of that and helps the formation, helps the balance down the left-hand side as well. No word on Pedro Porro as of yet. Still waiting to see when he is going to be available, which we'll find out on Friday. We did kind of feel like from the press conference pre-Wolves that the way Postecoglou spoke about him said it might be a little bit longer for him. Although, I think it was a strain they said that as. I don't know whether that's hamstring or not. You'd imagine if you're going to put your money on something, it probably is a hamstring with Spurs and their issues. But we'll see on him. I know that he was on social media telling people not to sell him from their fantasy football team. So whether that means anything or not, who knows. Mana Solomon, still not back in training yet. There is a hope it could be this week. The thing with Mana Solomon is a little bit like it was with Ryan Sessegnon, in that you've just got to be so careful. He's been out since September with this knee injury, and just got to make sure he doesn't come back too soon. Obviously, last time still felt a little bit of pain in his knee. Had to have a minor procedure. I think it was to do with the stitching inside his knee. And so now they just want to make sure he is 100% comfortable coming back and getting back at the right time. So hopefully, fingers crossed a little bit this week. You would imagine now we're at the point where it's too late to really have any involvement in the Palace game. You'd think, unless he's absolutely incredible when he returns. But otherwise, you think there's the options on the bench at the moment not to have to put him into that position, even though I'm sure he'd love to. We'll see. Friday, I'm sure we'll get another update of whether he's been able to get back this week. Obviously, since the last video, we've also had the news about Ryan Sessegnon, who I just mentioned. Poor Ryan. It's one of those where it is rubbish for him and he is absolutely gutted, understandably. But also, weirdly, there's actually quite a lot of hope and optimism there for him. So if you're not aware what happened with Ryan Sessegnon, obviously had his hamstring issue in, I just want to get it right exactly what it was. It was the first time was his left, that was it. His left hamstring, injured, kept him out for a long time, 11 months between games when he finally came back against Burnley. He had an operation on it, which I said at the time, way back, was meant to essentially prevent any further reoccurrence of an injury in that hamstring, or make it very, very, very slim. Essentially, it's a way of strengthening that hamstring as well. Surgery is always the last resort for these sort of things. I've had people often asking, and I understand the question, why not just do that straight away, get that sorted? But the issue is, surgery is probably always the last resort, because it's quite an invasive procedure. You essentially going inside the human body and messing about with it, I guess. Whereas with Sess, there were 3 good years. I did a piece on him this week. There were 3 good years, 20, 21 and 22, where he played the majority, or he was available for the majority of those years. One of those was the loan at Hoffenheim. Yeah, he had the odd little problem that maybe would keep him out for 3 weeks, 4 weeks at a time. But on the whole, he was actually available for most of those 3 years, and that was through kind of managing it and not doing surgery. But obviously, it got to the point where it required surgery, and he was out for all that time. Then, of course, we had the moment in the under-21s game against West Ham a couple of weeks back when he went to take a cross, just kind of turned really awkwardly, fell to the floor, and we now know why, because he damaged the other hamstring. Which is just, it's just the way fate works, isn't it? It's just rubbish. So the reason I say that there's kind of some hope, although the fact that he's obviously done the other hamstring and he's going to be out for what I understand to be 10 to 12 weeks, which is quicker than the last time. The good thing about it is that it's been a successful surgery. It is exactly the same thing. It's going to make the chances of a reoccurrence very, very slim. So in a way, it's kind of a bit like the Bionic Man, in that the two areas of his body that were giving him the most problems have now had surgery that should prevent him getting problems there in the future. And he is 23 years old, and he has got the rest of his career ahead of him. I'll read you very quickly his statement if you haven't seen it. He put it up on social media. Gutted beyond belief, just when I saw a light at the end of the tunnel and thought I was back doing what I love, I've hit another setback. I've been down this road before. I'll pick myself up, stay headstrong, and begin my recovery in the best way possible. Having been through an operation and the recovery on my other hamstring last year, and knowing how strong that hamstring is now, I know this is the best solution to put an end to the recurring issues. Thank you to those who have sent messages of support. I can't express how it feels. We're all human at the end of the day, and I'm devastated more than anyone to have a setback. I'll do everything I can to be back out on that pitch. Speaking on behalf of anyone who's been in this situation, please be careful what you say online. Words hurt, and no one chooses to be in this position. Love, Sess. Yeah, that last part, that got to me. That kind of it annoyed me in the way that in the fact that he had to say it. A 23-year-old, a young player, has to go out there and tell people politely, please don't abuse me. It's just, I'm not going to go into a long rant. I did an article on it in the week, how much it annoyed me, the reaction to it. And I spoke on the podcast with Guesty, Golden Guest Talk Tottenham yesterday. Had a little bit of a rant is the only word about it. You know what I'm like. You know my feelings towards social media and the way people treat other people. It winds me right up. It really does. Just how people will act on there in a way they will never ever act with someone in the real world. Just looking at his Instagram, see it right now. All of his teammates and past teammates coming out in such support for him in a moment when he really needed it. Van de Ven, Romero, Højbjerg, Dane Scarlett, Brian Hill, Manor Solomon, who's gone through his own issues, obviously. Matt Doherty, Carl Walker-Peters, loads of people from his, that've played with him in the past and over the years. Troy Parrott, Steve Nash, the basketball player, very, very cool guy. Jed Spence, Brandon Austin, Brendan Johnson, Vicario, Madison. I'm sure there's many, many, many more. Stephen Bergwijn, Dennis Sirkin, Lo Celso, Malachi Walker. I don't need to keep going. There's loads. And I'm sure most of them, especially people like Sonny, will have spoken to him privately as well. But yeah, the fact that he has to tell people not to abuse him. I was just looking at some of the stuff out there. Again, I promise this isn't a rant. I'm not going to go on for ages. Just the fact that seeing the people saying, "Oh, retire, hang up your boots. Go away, go to another club. You're not at the right level for us. Your ability isn't good enough." Why now? Why do you have to say that now? What do you get from that? What kind of kick does that give you to feel that you've, had your opinion and this kind of, if you can't deal with it, that's just the way I am. This kind of attitude that people have got without any self-awareness of it's just the wrong. Why say someone to that in their lowest moment? Why do that? Don't get it. There's absolutely no issue with debating whether a player's good enough or not for your club or whatever, or what their future holds. But does it have to be in that moment? And some people even tagging in the player. Can we not just let them get fit and let them kind of get back and then see what their future holds? Do we have to, as they've just admitted how gutted they are and please don't abuse me, telling them that they're not good enough to be at the club? Regardless of who you think that's abuse or not, it is. Like I say, it's about timing. And whether you would you go up to someone, if you were sitting in a house and someone said, "Oh, we're not going to have this operation," would you say to them, "Well, you're not really good enough anyway"? It's just like, that's not the real world. But yeah, so I'm going to stop that there because I could go on forever about how much social media annoys me. And there's actually that annoys some people that I talk about social media. But it is an issue. It is. And for young players to have to come out and say that sort of stuff, I don't think it's something that we should just ignore. I get that the idea that it gives them a little bit more attention to what they're saying, these trolls abusing people, whatever you want to say, or people that just have no thought about what they're saying, maybe the lesser degree of saying that. But I still think that you shouldn't just ignore it, because there needs to be a solution. I don't know what that is. Social media companies are never going to allow a 30-second minute filter or make it standard before do you really want to post this? But yeah, God, I almost turned into a rant. So I'm going to head off from that. But yeah, hopefully people understand my views on that. Antonio Nusa, a name from not too distant past. I spoke to Stian Andre de Waal from, I hope I've pronounced that right, from the Norwegian media outlet Nettavisen, because I wanted to just kind of check up on where things were at with Antonio Nusa. So if you've forgotten who he is, which can happen after a transfer window where it's all very exciting and then everyone moves on quite quickly. Antonio Nusa is an 18-year-old, very talented young Norwegian winger, plays for Club Brugge. Spurs had talks over potentially signing him in January. In the end, he chose Brentford, you might remember, because they were able to offer him more game time, potentially starts as well, whereas Spurs were very much like, well, you're very raw. He wasn't starting games regularly for Club Brugge at that point either. And they weren't able to give that kind of guarantee, I suppose. And Nusa in his camp kind of felt also maybe it's too big a jump to suddenly go into the a big club in the Premier League or a side with Champions League ambitions, because that's not to do down Brentford, who are a very good club, although they are struggling a bit at the moment. So Nusa, very talented player, 4 assists and a goal in his first 4 appearances for Norway. And lots of potential about him, which is why the price tag is around 25 million for him. So Brentford thought they'd got their man, and then you might remember he had his medical, and it all went a bit pear-shaped. There was some little issues found. The deal eventually stalled, and then eventually collapsed. So yeah, not great for him, and obviously it never looks good when a player has medical issues or anything. But as it was afterwards, he was sent for further tests with the Norwegian international side, and their national team doctor was quoted, I think it was in Nettavisen, as saying the findings of the medical do not cause problems or symptoms and is ready for training and games. And he has since played 3 matches played almost every minute in them as well. So I just wonder whether there was some suggestion that maybe it was just some kind of growing issues that he'd had. But there seems to be no real fear over that. So I spoke to Stian about it, and just to kind of get, he and Nettavisen have been on this transfer from the start. They know the player and his advisors really well, his representatives, and so I thought I'll go to them, rather than me kind of poking around from the Spurs end of things more so. I thought I'd go to the other side of it. And first off, I asked him, what's the current situation with the injury and his fitness? And he said, well, from what we know, Nusa is fully fit. There's no issue as of now. He's also back in Bruges and starting games on a regular basis, and he's performing well. So that's good. Obviously, Spurs, rather than signing Nusa, went and signed Lucas Bergvall, that we know, much cheaper, £8.6 million. Different position, central midfielder. Nusa is more of mainly plays on the left wing, but can play across the front 3 or as a support striker as well if required. So I don't think it was an either-or situation. I think in an ideal world they would have loved to have got both. But yeah, sorry. Next question I asked him as well. Does any part of the deal with Brentford remain for the summer, or is that broken down? To which he said, it's already been reported elsewhere that the deal with Brentford is off, and from what we heard, he and his advisors have taken a step back to consider the options for the summer window. If Brentford want to pursue a deal, they may kind of start over again with negotiations. A lot of clubs in all the top 5 leagues are still interested in Nusa. So I, of course, said I'd heard that Spurs were still monitoring the situation. I kind of wanted to to check from the other side as well, and whether he felt that Spurs would return in the summer for him. And he said Tottenham is definitely one of the clubs showing interest. It's difficult to say right now if they will try seriously to get him, but as we can see with Tottenham's strategy to invest in big young talents, it wouldn't be a surprise if they try. So my natural inclination, knowing the way Spurs work, would be like, well, there's some injury issues there, or has been. They're surely going to look to get that deal on a cheaper rate than his. And that's not just Spurs, that's all clubs looking in, I would imagine, will feel the same way. So I asked, does he think it would affect the price tag? To which he said, probably not, because the issues were solved and nobody ever thought that he had injuries that would make any significant problems for his development. If he gets back in form and shows a huge potential he has, the price shouldn't drop when other clubs go after him. I guess that's the case as well. If there's competition and more clubs going in, then that naturally keeps that price up high, as we've seen with other players that Spurs have gone for. And so I asked, just straight off, is the opinion that he can still fulfil his potential despite his setback? And he said, yes, absolutely. It was probably a mental challenge when all this came up in January, but it seems that he's already back in full form and playing at a high level for Bruges in Belgium. So we'll see what happens with Nusa and whether that's something that Spurs revisit or whether Brentford may get back in as well. They may feel that they're still in a strong position. But other clubs will now feel they've got a chance. So we'll see. I just thought that was a little update on a player. Sometimes we hear about players in the window and then they go and that's it. We never really kind of hear from them again and never linked again. There's a lot of kind of foreign press do like to link players, especially to Spurs, I think. There's a lot of agent talk around stuff. But with Nusa, that was definitely a player that Spurs were trying to sign. But he chose Brentford. And that's not, I know some people kind of hold that against players, but I think, as I explained, I think I explained this at the time as well, I quite liked the idea, even though he wasn't coming to Spurs, that his team and him, the people around him and himself and his family were thinking about the right development path for him and not jumping too quickly into something, which some players do, and they'll sometimes get lost within big clubs. It's quite interesting that he chose one of the a different option, as it were. So let's see what happens with Nusa. What else have we had this week? We've had fixture rescheduling. Newcastle match 12:30 on a Saturday. There is no logic behind these decisions that are made. There really isn't, other than it being for TV. And I guess for other people, as some fans have told me from around the world, it's good for them. The kickoff times can be a little bit better for them. But yeah, for those kind of travelling on the day, myself included, it's a pain in the backside to get up there that early. Forest is now Monday night at home as well. Probably less of an issue because Nottingham to Spurs isn't the longest trip in the world. It's not too bad. I've done that a fair few times. West Ham now is an 8:15 p.m. kickoff on a Tuesday night. I hate those late kickoff times as well. I guess it's okay for everyone else, but for purely a woe is me journalist going to a game for free thing, 8:15, we're not going to get out of the match isn't going to finish till about 10:15, and then we're going to be there another hour and a half to 2 hours with everything afterwards and the press conference and everything. So yeah, again, don't cry for me with my free Premier League ticket or press pass. So, but yeah, just pointless whinging there. What else we had? They had the club's fan advisory board had its latest meeting. It was actually on Monday, 19th of February, but the meeting, the minutes have only just come out for that. I would say it was the most thrilling minutes I've ever gone through in a meeting. No Daniel Levy this time. Doesn't really. I think Donna Maria Cullen, who's the executive director, she's on the board. She was the only board member I could see, unless I missed one doing the meeting. And yeah, there was only little bits and pieces, like you might remember me saying in the past, because I did a little piece on it, the Bill Nicholson Gates from White Hart Lane that obviously we haven't seen since. I was asking around about them, fans are asking about them, and it now seems that there is going to be an interim solution for the gates to be installed in the area between the back of Percy House and the ticket office, and this will now be progressed through planning with Haringey Council. So at least they will be back out in the open. It is a little bit tucked away around the back of there, so hopefully eventually, as it is an interim solution, hopefully it gets a more prominent place, because those gates are very cool, and a reminder of a better time, I guess. Club also confirmed its financial statement will be posted by the end of March. So that always gives us loads to dive into and tuck into. And they also plan to survey season ticket holders to see if there's an appetite to increase the amount of safe standing at the stadium as well. Yeah, intrigued to know about that. Feel free in the comments if you want to let me know about safe standing. It's one of those where it's awkward because there was definitely an era where everyone stood and they loved it, and I can definitely see how it creates a great atmosphere in places. In German football, they have a lot of it as well, and obviously myself having kind of come from a non-league background in reporting, having seen obviously people standing at games there and the great kind of noise and atmosphere you can get, but then also, I guess when I was going to matches, I was in the period where it wasn't standing up Spurs, and I was kind of more used to the sitting down thing and then being like, oh, when someone would stand up in front of you. So it's interesting to see kind of what people kind of think. I think if it's done in the right way, personally, and it's all coordinated and everyone is standing, it's kind of the idea of safe standing areas, then yeah, I mean, it can be better for atmosphere and things like that. But no, let me know. It's one of those kind of ones that sometimes gets pushed a little bit to the background and we don't hear about for ages. So yeah, I think Spurs are one of the first, if not the first, to kind of start bringing it in. It was about 2 years ago, wasn't it? So yeah, let me know. What else we got? Like I say, this was only going to be quite a relatively short update rather than the movie length ones I normally do. A little bit on the loan. I'm trying to think, did I do anything on loans? I didn't, did I? Because it was... or did I? No, I'm trying to remember when I did my last video. That's scary. You're getting old when you can't remember exactly when you last did a video. Let me just double check in case I don't want to go over any old ground for anyone. So bear with me 1 second. I'm pretty sure I didn't do loan stuff. Let's have a look. I did it on... This is like the ultimate old man moment, isn't it? 8 days ago, so no, I wouldn't have done that. That would not have been in there. Right, so very quickly, I'm just going to buzz through them very quickly. Obviously, you've got probably not worth doing about Eric Dyer and Ivan Perisic because they are both heading off from the club. They are just seeing out the last months of their contracts. Dyer obviously at Bayern, Perisic at Hajduk Split. Obviously he's out injured at the moment anyway. And obviously people like Lucas Bergvall and Luka Vuskovic, they technically haven't actually joined the club yet. Although obviously we spoke about Bergvall's rather excellent. I didn't do it 8 days ago. What am I talking about? What other rubbish I'm talking? I did it 2 days ago. I am going mad. I am going absolutely mad. I did it on 25th of February, which is Sunday. It's been a long week. Trust me, when you're in a week like this, when there's not any kind of match action going on, your brain is frazzled trying to kind of think of new kind of ideas and delve into any little bits and pieces that do occur. I thought it was 8 days ago. Going mad. So Bergvall, obviously, we know, scored a lovely goal, albeit against the third division Swedish side in the Swedish Cup, but it's still a beautiful goal. Doesn't take away from the technique at all. Had a lovely assist as well. Guesty and I in the podcast yesterday, he scored 2 goals actually. Guesty and I were having a debate in the podcast yesterday whether his assist for Djurgården was better than Jamie Donnelly's assist for Iago Santiago's final goal against Fleetwood Town in the Under-21s match. He felt it was Bergvall's. I felt it was Donnelly's, because Donnelly's, for me, went through about 4 different players and it was a reverse pass, whereas for Bergvall's, it was a very clever assist, but it, for me, was a little bit of a simpler pass. But hey, again, let us know in the comments. I can show Guesty if I get people that support me, but I won't show him if you don't. Yeah, so that's what they're up to. Jed Spence, Genoa's lucky charm at the moment. He's He had a couple of games on the bench, wasn't playing, came back for them at the weekend, came off the bench for the final 12 minutes as they won 2-0 against Udinese, and they won, which means they've won or drawn every single game that he's appeared in, whereas when he hasn't appeared, they've either lost or drawn. So, yeah, Jed Spence, their lucky charm at the moment. He did a little interview as well in the week saying that why it didn't work for him at Spurs. This is football. I couldn't explain the reasons. What's certain is that when you don't play, excuse me, it's difficult to demonstrate your value. There's no point in asking too many questions, but I believe that even in difficulty, there's always something to learn. Whichever coach you are, it makes you richer inside. He was speaking to La Gazzetta dello Sport. And with Genoa, he said, I knew they'd already been looking for me last summer. Now the right conditions are there to close the operation. I think that's pretty much going to be Google Translate there. I'm satisfied. It's an important opportunity. I hope that this can be the beginning of a very long journey in a club that is growing. I found a nice team in a pleasant city. I settled in quickly. It supported me in everything. Everyone in the locker room has helped. There's a nice atmosphere here. Soon I will start studying Italian. For now, I prefer to concentrate on football. I don't know if you can do both. Footballers have a fair bit of free time. But hey, I'm sure we'll get there. And the fact that he was talking about long-term at Genoa as well, it'll be interesting to see whether they can afford to sign him in the summer, I suppose. Alejo Veliz got more minutes. He played at the Bernabeu against Real Madrid. Not too shabby. Only came on for the last 15 minutes of the game. They lost 1-0. Real's goal scorer was a certain former Tottenham player, Luka Modric. Japhet Tanganga had a brilliant weekend, scored his first ever senior goal. Obviously 24 years old, that was his first goal against Southampton, which had a bit of a shock win, Millwall 1-2-1. He got in front of the keeper, kind of looped it back, got whacked for his troubles. But yeah, he was voted man of the match for that, did very well, cleared a Che Adams effort off the line as well. Yeah, really good for him. Got lots of praise. Neil Harris, actually, the new manager there who's taken over, said if he wants to be a centre-half, then he's going to need to do that at both ends of the pitch. We defended our box superbly today. Japhet was outstanding. So, yeah, good for him. Joe Rodon, continues to play for Leeds. Obviously, they got a big win against Leicester on Friday night. I really should have looked to see if there's any midweek games, but I'm kind of going on various notes I took from the weekend. Yeah, funny enough, Leeds Live for the first time didn't really rate Rodon that high. Said he had one of his more difficult performances this season because of Leicester's attacking ability, but and he wasn't quite as calm on and off the ball as he normally is. But he's had a terrific season with them. He really has. Troy Parrott, quiet one for him. Mostly defensive stuff he was having to do for Excelsior Rotterdam as they lost 2-1 at home to Vitesse. It was quite a big game that in a way because Excelsior 15th, Vitesse 17th. Yeah, I mean, but he's still doing very well for a team in the lower reaches of the Eredivisie. Like I said before, 10 goal involvement, 7 goals, 3 assists in 20 matches. So he's doing very well. Reguilon obviously played for Brentford. They were playing West Ham. Wasn't a great game. Tongi Ndombele still out with a muscle injury. He hasn't been playing the last couple of games. Galatasaray boss Okan Buruk. Speculation about his future because of his inability to get the best out of Tongi and other star names like Wilfried Zaha. So, yeah, Tongi not doing him any favours by the sounds of it. Alfie Devine and Ashley Phillips both were left out of Plymouth's match at the weekend. They weren't left out. They were on the bench, came on late on. The manager Ian Foster said they just needed a bit of a rest because they're two very young players who have been playing a lot recently. I feel like Plymouth maybe had a game, or did they not? Maybe they didn't. Just want to double check. I don't think they did. Only because I noticed that Alfie Devine did a little picture of him in his kit as if he'd played a game. But no, last one was that Middlesbrough defeat. Matthew Craig, lots of praise for him. Matthew Craig, 20-year-old Scotland under-21 international midfielder. Last week, you might remember, I think I said that he got his first professional goal, first professional assist as well. And his manager, Grant McCann at Doncaster Rovers, said of him, he's getting better all the time, getting used to the demands of this level. Maybe the first couple of games took him by surprise at how physical it was, but we know he's physical and he tried to adapt his game a little bit to be in the sort of position he's in. There will be contact and he'll have to find his way out of tight little spaces. He's a great kid. Sometimes you take young boys on loan from the Premier League and they don't really seem to want to learn. But Matty is completely different. He wants to come in and learn and he'll have a top career, there's no doubt about it. So yeah, keep an eye on him. Might remember Matthew Craig made his Premier League debut for Spurs in the final game of last season under Ryan Mason. So yeah, it's got experience, and fingers crossed he can crack on now. That would be terrific for him. And the other one is Josh Keeley, who's doing very well at Barnet. They're second now in the National League, and he's playing every single game for them, getting good reports on him. Kept a clean sheet at the weekend. They beat York City. Really good. As I've said in the past, very difficult for the goalkeepers to get loans. There's not a lot of empty slots out there for goalkeepers to do that. So when you get something like that, team in the non-league, like flying high, looking to get promoted into the Football League, it's a really good bit of experience for him. He's only 20 years old. Republic of Ireland under 21 international. So yeah, good stuff happening with him. So there you go. That's kind of the main updates that I can give you. I'm just having a little double check that nothing else. Nothing else has come along. So let's get into some of your questions. That reminded me. Someone asked a brilliant question last time about players that have gone on and done better after they've left Spurs or they've struggled, and I had a real mind freeze afterwards. I knew players that had gone on and done better, but I couldn't think of players that had struggled at Spurs and then gone on. And I got some terrific ones. Obviously, Graham Souness being one from the past. Marcus Edwards was another one that came up as well. Obviously, Jack Clark's doing very well for himself as well. So, it was. That's where I love it, when the comments people can really help my brain work. I'm going to try to go to the other end of the comments now. I find that I'm almost penalising people that kind of get in there early with their questions by going to the top and doing the latest one. So I'm going to go back right to the start. There you go, Steve Harvey. Would Marcus Edwards make the list of players who've done better after leaving Spurs? Absolutely he has. He's done very, very well for himself. And hopefully should still keep pushing on as well. The Gravity Guy, movie one. With June 2 around the corner, what's your favourite fantasy sci-fi story? Gold. People call me Gold. Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, Dune, or Star Wars. As a kid, I was absolutely love Star Wars. I had all the figures and everything as a kid. So yeah, it's got to be Star Wars out of those. I did very much get into Game of Thrones when it was around. Lord of the Rings, loved the movies, read the books when I certainly remember reading The Hobbit as a very young child. Dune, I remember watching it way back and being grossed out by some of the stuff in it. New one was alright, it was good. The reviews for the second one sound phenomenal as well. What else we got? Okay. Kurt Smith asks, this is a good question. Might sound silly, but is going to an under-21 game straightforward? Is there close by parking? Can you obtain tickets on the door, or must you buy via Spurs online? You can get tickets on the door. Obviously, the one at the weekend was at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, but normally they're at the Lamex Stadium in Stevenage. Parking at the Lamex is there's parking close by as well. So yeah, honestly, they're really good. They're really entertaining games to watch, and you kind of get a real sense of the level of the players that are, rather than just being a name. It is very good. Someone asking about, I said about Civilization. I remembered it is Civ 4. Civ 4 Beyond the Sword. That's the one that I just keep going back to. Very nerdy, but none of the ones after that really took. Michael Harvey asks, what position do you think will strengthen in the summer and how many will buy? I think they will look for at least one, if not two, fullbacks. Maybe one fullback and one who is a centre-back that can also play as the Postecoglou style fullback. I would imagine they'll look at a striker. And of course, the number 8 seems to still be a position that they're looking for. Obviously, Lucas Bergvall coming in as a number 8, but very much one who's going to have to adapt and develop and grow, but obviously will be a big talent for the future. So Summer's a funny one because I think they'll go in with these set ideas and they'll go in looking, for an attacker, for a central, a number 8 type, and also for a fullback or two. But, you look at it and could even be another centre-back. Depending on who departs, you might need another 6 to come in as well. Summer ones, you kind of go in with a plan, but you also have to have this almost like plan B, I guess, of if this player leaves, what do we do here? Who are the names that come into consideration there? So, yeah, and how many will we buy? I'd imagine it will be another one where they look for at least 4 or 5, because it is about this process of transforming the squad into a Postecoglou squad. That's what they need to do, really. Oh, that's a tough question. Zoinski9948 asks, what are your top 3 favourite books of all time? Oh, man. I can look, actually, because on the bookshelf here. It's always a big... God, I used to love... I'm trying to think of the ones when I was younger. I used to love Michael Crichton books, Matthew Riley books in more recent years. James Rowland's is pretty good as well. I always remember loving Timeline, the Michael Crichton book years back. That and Jurassic Park were 2 of my favourite books when I was young. Various football books. The Glory Game, obviously. I can't actually see the bookshelf from here properly. But yeah, that was a great bit of the video, wasn't it? See a man craning his head to see his own bookshelf. You can't get better entertainment than that. Yeah, you can kind of tell the kind of books I like. I like adventure books. I love kind of transporting myself elsewhere. Lord of the Rings is on there as well. Game of Thrones books I kind of work my way through as well. My reading actually at the moment is really tailed off, and I do think it's definitely the advent of streaming and TV, and that's something I need to get back into. It's something that I used to love, and I'm just not doing enough of it at the moment. I guess it's through work, I suppose, working with words and the amount of reading you have to kind of do online and stuff for that sort of stuff. And my brain, by the time I get to an end of the day, it's just I can't process any more words. I end up kind of watching things instead, and I do need to get back to that. But yeah, adventure books, football books, bios. Oh, it's a brilliant Muhammad Ali one that I can't see from here. It was really frustrating. It was a Pulitzer Prize winning one that was about Ali, and it was a brilliant one. Is it Thomas Hauser? Oh, that's plucking that name from the past. I might have completely got that wrong. Or certainly he was a Pulitzer Prize winning author or writer. Chris Whitcomb, 8675 asks, what do you think Spurs will do with Ndombele in the summer if he comes back to the club? I think try to sell him, quite frankly. I can't imagine he gets another chance half a decade on. I'd imagine they just look to sell him, or failing that, another loan, I guess. I mean, his deal must be to about 2025, so yeah, not good. Not good. He's struggling at Galatasaray to get game time. Obviously, he's injured at the moment as well. Yeah. A lot of people pointing out my inability to say Nike. And that's a childhood issue, that is. I don't know whether it was just an English thing at the time. A lot of people maybe called it Nike. And obviously it is, from the Greek goddess and everything. Just for some reason my brain reverts to it. I know it's Nike. I watch enough stuff, American shows, when they talk about Nike, but I still randomly will just call it Nike from time to time. Izzy Leanne asks, have you actually got in mind already the opening to a video you make after Spurs actually win something? No, because my brain can't even process that thought. The intro to that will be just ridiculous if Spurs can finally pick up a piece of silverware. I'm going to have the biggest grin on my face possible. Someone's going to make it out of me because it indicates I predicted Spurs will get top 4. There's a long way to go. There is a long way to go. What else we got? Ooh, good question. I don't know the answer to this, but it is a good question. I would imagine we'll find out quite soon. David Grove 9731 asks, As a season ticket holder, have you heard anything on the grapevine about an increase for next season? We had it frozen for the last 2 seasons, but I'll be surprised if it didn't go up for 24-25. I would also be surprised if it doesn't go up, mainly because the football's been better as well, and they can kind of hang it on it's not being the utter disaster that previous seasons were. Should it go up? That's a whole other subject. But yeah, I'd imagine we'll find out reasonably soon. I saw in that fans advisory board meeting about them talking about they will be consulting with the fans. I don't think they did last time. I think pretty much they just went up and then had to kind of back down on it. But yeah, I would be surprised at that. That is from no information, by the way, before that ends up going, Gold says Spurs to increase season ticket price. I don't know. I haven't heard anything. I just would assume they probably would. Oh, interesting. That's a really good one. Nodge NP, NOJ to NP, whatever it is. What is the daily routine or expectations of a player during a long-term injury? Take Bentancur or Perisic a few months after ACL surgery. Do they come to Hotspur Way every day still? What do they work on? That's a really good question. They do come to Hotspur Way a fair bit still, often most days. Sometimes they'll also have stuff they take home with them to help them with their recovery. Sometimes, as Postecoglou kind of said recently, they'll send them away for a change of environment. That may be back to their homeland. They might go back, like Romero and Lo Celso have gone back to Argentina at times with their injuries. And it's about making sure mentally that they're in a good place as well. But yeah, on the whole, they do come into Hotspur Way quite a lot. And I remember James Maddison saying that and this is, to be fair, this is quite a thing that happens with most Premier League clubs, is that it's difficult. The treatment room's main window, you might have seen it in the Amazon All or Nothing documentary, it faces the training pitches. The idea is they want to get back out there. It encourages you to kind of get fit and get back out there and training with everyone. But I definitely think there's another aspect of when you know you've got so long ahead of you, it can get you down. So yeah, I hope that's kind of answered your question while also talking about something else. Mr. Malark asks, do you wear a new t-shirt for every video or do I just have a bad memory? I try not to wear the same thing I wore in the last video, just in case people think it's the same old video. But no, it's not a new t-shirt for every single video. I don't have a big wardrobe. I'm just not fashionable enough. That's as you can probably tell. Anyone that's seen me or the things I wear in these, I'm just a guy that literally will chuck on whatever they can. Fashion's not been one of my things over the years. Stick with the classic things that work in every decade. That's my way. Pretty much like my hair. Other than the one little period when I did have a very close cropped hairstyle when I was young, back in sixth form. Looked great the first time I did it. Had it done again. Looked horrendous. Never went back to it. So you go. I think that's pretty. There's a quick one that's just had come in as well. David Kudler, love the info on the academy, especially Jamie Donnelly. Do you think he and Bergvall will work well off each other, or will one of them have to go out on loan next year? Will he have to go out on loan next year? I would imagine. He said I mentioned it in it, which I remember now saying. Yeah, I'd imagine Jamie, out of those, will have to go out on loan. It depends on the circumstances. You never know. There could be injuries. He could just be incredible in pre-season, and they say, I'm not letting that guy go. But you would imagine, especially Alfie Devine is very talented, you can't have all three of those, I don't think, at the club at the same time. They need to be playing minutes. So, I think he'll head out on loan. Right, going to head off now. Like I said, that was just a kind of a shorter one to do a little update. The way these things go, there'll probably be something breaks tonight. Every time I do a little update video, something else then happens. So maybe I'm preempting that. Hopefully a good thing for us. So, but yeah, going to head off now. As always, just straight off, before I go into my little goodbye, obviously, Palace game on Saturday, really looking forward to that. Big one for Spurs. Need to get some momentum heading into the Villa game. Should hopefully be everyone kind of you would see in that first 11, other than Porro, although we never know. We might get a positive Porro update in the days ahead. We'll see. But as always, stay healthy. I can't even forget my own outro now. Is that what it's called? An outro? Stay safe, stay healthy, look after yourselves, and I shall catch you later. Remembered it just in time. Goodbye.